Today, we're going to discuss the likely changes involving the nature of work, employee education, and professional development in the insurance industry. I'm also going to share some of our thoughts on what insurers and organizations like the SOA, what we must do to develop the talent needed in the future. There are several major changes that are affecting the insurance industry and our industries more broadly. New technologies, more data than ever before. We have increasing complexity and the interconnectedness of risk. We have changing demographics, and that kind of goes hand in hand with the globalization of business. What I'm going to do is I'm going to talk through some of these many changes, and I'm going to talk through how they impact the Society of Actuaries and the work that we do, the work that will impact you as volunteers, and really want your input here. Let's see here. There we go. So the SOA's work in analyzing this is some of the largest, the deepest, and the most extensive that we've done in years. The SOA board, we've devoted ourselves over the past year to an in-depth and an exhaustive review of the critical challenges facing the Society of Actuaries, not just the SOA, but the whole actuarial profession and the long-term growth prospects for both. The process we've undergone has included a review and a debate on the work of many scholars studying the impact of technology and artificial intelligence on the work of all professions, including the work we do as actuaries. We've even enlisted the help of McKinsey Consulting and to help us conduct like an in-depth review of the markets and the companies, like the employers in which our members work. We've conducted market research and surveys on member and candidate views. We've conducted stakeholder interviews with employers like CEOs, practice leaders, and some of the senior officers of the largest consulting firms in the profession. And we've held focus groups, discussions with students and faculty at some of the world's best schools of actuarial science, and discussions with SOA members and key volunteers in the US and Canada and Asia. You can think of this discussion today as an extension of that. So we have identified through all of this environmental scanning, through all of this debate, through discussions with consultants, with employers, with all of our stakeholders, we've identified 5 critical issues for the SOA and the actuarial profession. It's very hard to boil this down, but we think these capture a lot of the things we need to focus on in long-term growth. So these 5 areas are the rise of data science, the impact of artificial intelligence on the nature of work, the changing nature of credentialing and skill development, a strengthening candidate and member engagement. I know a lot of you in this room work a lot on member engagement and strengthening our relationship with them. And then finally, the future geographic growth pattern. We feel that the critical next steps are really developing a proactive strategy to address these issues. We start with these 5. And to develop initiatives, solid concrete things we can do to follow this strategy. So I'm going to talk through each of these 5 trends, and I'm going to conclude with the impact that we already see these trends having on key SOA functions, education and professional development and research. So I want to talk first about data science. What do we mean when we say data science? Is it, in general, I think in my mind, it's a discipline. It teaches people to structure data and pull information from very large data sets using ever sophisticated analytical techniques. It's a lot similar to the work we do as actuaries. I know a lot of actuaries consider ourselves the original data scientists. There's some differences. The size of the data sets involved, the availability of substantial new computing power in the last 5, 10, 15 years has really risen. And finally, the development of powerful new statistical techniques. Many universities have created new undergraduate and graduate programs in data science. And data science as a profession, as a job, has surged to the top spot in many career rankings. I don't know that I would go so far as to call data science a profession just yet, but certainly the job itself has moved to the top. Many students that we've spoken to perceive that data science offers its graduates opportunities to work in any industry, not just insurance, and it avoids the need, taking a data science degree or a data science credential avoids the need for taking actuarial exams. Those are arduous, 5, 8, 10 years of time frame there. And in student focus groups, we hear more and more that they're earning double majors. A student may get a major in actuarial science and data science, to cover their bases, as it were, to make sure that they're covering all of their opportunities. And it's become clearer in these focus groups that the use of data science and insurer investments in it are growing very rapidly. So insurance companies, many of you are senior members of insurance companies, and surely your companies have either considered or are currently investing a lot in data science. These roles are frequently not led or populated by actuaries. Sometimes they are, but very often, chief data scientist is certainly a position at many insurance companies. And data scientists are being hired at much faster rate than new actuaries or actuarial students. Our evolution starts with kind of embracing new technologies. Traditional actuarial methods are really based on a couple of assumptions. Data is scarce, and making predictions using data can be expensive. It takes a team of actuaries. But let's talk about some of those assumptions. Let's talk about access to data. Today, data is abundant. We have sensors in our cars, and our phones, and our garments, on my watch. That track our activities in real time. We know that our DNA may give clues as to the likelihood of, suffering different diseases or falling ill, or maybe it gives some of our loved ones real-time data about falls that we're having or issues that we're having. But all of these require kind of the statistical technologies to analyze and extract meaning from all of that data. It's critical that we actuaries learn how and when to use these predictive analytical techniques. And the SOA, as I think most of you know, has recently incorporated these into our syllabus. Some of you are even responsible for doing that yourself. And we've introduced a certificate program for people like me. I've taken it and passed it. Thank you, Dr. Klugman. People like me that want a chance to learn about them. Data access, really important, and we've already kind of gone down the path of addressing, data science in this regard and the educational process. So I want to talk a little bit about artificial intelligence. Let's define artificial intelligence. Artificial intelligence, I think of as the ability for a machine to perform cognitive functions that we normally associate with the human mind. These are functions perceiving and reasoning and problem solving. All of these today are being done by non-human agents or tools like robots and computer vision and natural language processing. I tend to think of AI as almost augmented intelligence in that case. As we mentioned earlier, AI significantly cuts the cost of prediction. Many of you were at the 2019 SOA annual meeting in Toronto. You saw Dr. Ajay Agrawal, and he spoke with all of us about, the cost of prediction and the economics and what that meant for us. I'm going to talk a little bit about that. Professionals in the insurance industry or any other industry who base their value on making predictions about the future, we face a problem. We can either adapt to convert to using some of these prediction machines. We can use these to our advantage, or if we refuse to, we stand the chance of losing. So I want to put up a quote here. There's 4 main developments, according to Richard and Daniel Susskind. These are some of the researchers that the SOA board has talked extensively with. There's 4 main developments in information technology: exponential growth, increasingly capable machines, pervasive devices, and then finally connected humans to those devices. The Suskins at Oxford University documented these patterns in many professions, and that included, not just insurance and finance, but healthcare and education, in law, in divinity, in journalism, management consulting, in tax and audit services, and in architecture. And the same pattern exists in virtually every profession. One other effect is also to think about this from a classical economic perspective. In any situation where the price of a good drops significantly, competitors to that good are harmed, but complementary goods and activities are made valuable. And those professionals who complement the work of prediction machines, who can apply the judgment necessary to use those predictions, those professionals are going to succeed dramatically. So if you're the person who can find a sensible path through the jungle of some, equally plausible predictions, you're going to be a very valuable resource, for your employer, for those around you. This reminds me of an example that I was kind of keyed into when reading it's David Epstein's book, Range. If you haven't read this book, it's a phenomenal book. It talks exactly about the sort of thing that we actuaries need to be interested in. And he mentioned that in the early days, chess with the artificial intelligence and programs developed to beat some of the grand masters. And as many of you probably recall, that Gary Kasparov was beaten by IBM's Deep Blue after a couple of iterations. And after that, Gary Kasparov, I don't know if you've heard interviews with him, he's an incredibly smart person, very deep thinker. He went out to think about how the relationship between humans and artificial intelligence, might play out. And he actually further developed additional forms of chess. Some of you are probably really great chess players, and I'm telling you something you know already. Gary Kasparov champions the idea of what they call freestyle chess. And that's chess where humans and machines kind of work together in order to spar off against each other. And in fact, the human chess hybrids end up actually doing far better than just people or just machines. And what can we learn from that? With enough repeating data to learn from, machines are going to be as good and often better than a human in many prediction tasks. In this case, in chess, kind of the tactics rather than the strategy. Machines just have more data to build pattern recognition. As Richard Susskind noted in a talk with the SOA board, a typical ophthalmologist, if you're an ophthalmologist, you might see cancer of the eye like 100 times in your career, but a computer can observe an almost unlimited number of examples of cancer of the eye and ultimately do a better job of recognizing the patterns and giving a correct diagnosis. So earlier we talked about traditional assumptions that we make about actuarial work, that making predictions about the future can be expensive. A particular challenge we face is the prospect of automation from artificial intelligence and general improvements to technology. Many actuarial consulting firms, they tell us, and I'm a part of one of these firms, they tell us they're doing many projects aimed at automating actuarial work processes, which they expect will reduce future demands for actuaries. As the Society of Actuaries, this is obviously a topic that interests us greatly. As AI becomes a lot more advanced, there will be a need to increase the soft skills that we have, to guide and to optimize the AI. These are the skills that I mentioned in the example of free chess as well, freestyle chess. We interviewed recent young actuaries who dropped their FSA and ASA credentials, and those former actuaries tell us that non-traditional employees do not readily grant students study time or exam-related pay raises. So, connecting a couple of these data points, we feel that the SOA should consider whether its existing model of educating students over many, many years is realistic for our current environment. The other thing to consider is the nature of the work that people do will change. Some skills will be more in demand, and others are going to be less in demand. This is not a groundbreaking realization. This has happened ever since the Industrial Revolution and continues to this day. For organizations like the SOA, how these changes are to occur or likely to occur, that's a major issue. McKinsey, again, our advisor on some of these issues, noted that a big decline in the demand for physical labor and manual skills is probably likely, since many activities relying on these skills are being pretty rapidly automated. At the far end of the spectrum is something like a 3D printer, right? Which actually can take the human out of the equation on a couple of fronts. It's clearly in its nascent stages, but it's a really important technology. The value of really basic cognitive skills is also likely to decline as machines take over data inputs and process management skills. But the demand for workers with creativity and complex information processing, that's going to grow significantly. The demand for social and emotional and adaptive skills is going to grow strongly across all disciplines, including those that are highly technical. And as the demand for technology skills, we expect technology skills in general to see substantial growth, an even greater increase in the need for advanced IT skills and programming. And we'll need more creativity, advanced communication and negotiation skills, as well as entrepreneurship and empathy and leadership skills. Kind of in short, some of those things are what make us kind of uniquely human. And I think that's going to probably come out in the next 20 years more so than ever. So let's look at the language of IQ and something we're going to call EQ and AQ. You may be familiar with these. IQ is defined as the specific technical skills and knowledge needed to do the jobs that we need. But IQ is going to decline in importance and value because AI and other data science are going to take some of those processes and make them super cheap and easy to do somewhere else. EQ, emotional quotient, is defined as the social and the emotional skills that help you make good judgments. And finally, AQ is the ability to adapt, to self-learn, and to continue growing and adapting. Employers we perceive will want high levels of emotional intelligence, communication skills, and leadership abilities, as well as the ability to lead change and be highly, highly adaptive to change. Here are some of the skills we think will be really importantly relevant in the near future. We put together all of these, and the trends that we perceive in terms of skills are there's a rapidly increasing pace of change, so almost the acceleration here for the development of new skills and knowledge. The technology for delivering learning and skills is shifting rapidly to online learning and new ways to demonstrate learning. I think here during our pandemic era, those of you who have young kids like me, those of you who don't, but are also, working virtually and having virtual conference calls and maybe doing a lot of your professional development online, I think we're seeing kind of a little jump discontinuity in the fact that, we are bringing a lot more of this online. School systems now, county and state school systems are finding out just how they can make their offerings more online. So delivering skills and learning online is becoming increasingly important. There's a rise in the data-driven and alternative skills assessment methods, so how to judge whether or not the skills are being learned. And finally, there's now, and there will continue to be, a really rapid rise in what we call micro-credentials and non-degree certificates. Skill seekers, they're using short-term training programs to develop skills through boot camps, through immersion experiences, through extended workshops, and rapid certification programs. As a reference, the head of a major U.S. consulting practice recently told the SOA, "I really don't care what degrees or credentials my team has. I care whether or not they have the skills to do work for my clients that my clients value and will pay for. And if your training, if the SOA's training gives them those skills, that's great. And if not, I'm not interested." That's kind of put some of what we do in stark relief. But I think there is a lot of truth to that. It's something we need to pay a lot of attention to. So this is the world that we're entering, and it has major implications for organizations like ours that deliver credentials. It also has major implications for employers. The prospective candidate base is increasingly diverse, due both to faster growth in candidate populations outside of the United States and Canada, and also more diverse populations within the United States. Our millennial and Gen Z members, tell us that they sometimes have a transactional relationship with the SOA, characterized by kind of its just business view of our organization. Now, you all on the phone probably don't feel that way as much because you've obviously devoted yourself to a lot of hours volunteering, which I think you feel very strongly about. But that hasn't been the case with some of the millennial and Gen Z members. There's a need for us to have a stronger emotional connection to our members to retain them. Each generation reinvents society and its organization, including the SOA, and the millennials and the Gen Z folks are no different. So while Gen X and baby boomers embrace many of the same changes, digital formats for communicating and learning, we also see that there are significant differences in how different generations perceive the SOA. And that's something that's kind of top of mind for us. Finally, the future growth patterns, geographically, the SOA's member and candidate populations have become more international in recent years, but we're still really both concentrated in, North America. I think the US and Canada and Mexico. If student populations remain concentrated in North America and entry-level employment is focused on traditional actuarial work, that stands to decline our membership over the next couple of decades. Those trends alone may do it. There is potential for a lot faster growth for the SOA in Asia and Africa, the Middle East, and Latin America. So to accelerate our growth beyond North America, the SOA is going to require a volunteer workforce model and an education system including pre-qualification and professional development that's a lot more global in nature. Now that I've talked through all of the trends, I'm going to spend just a couple minutes talking about the implication of these trends on the work that we do, the work that the Society does, the work that you as some of our best volunteers do and help us with. The first is I want to talk a little bit about education. We aim for a highly flexible education system. The SOA board has been studying these issues closely for much of the past year with help from both our members, our academic community, leaders of other professional societies, and the insurance industry employers. There's several clear implications of these trends for the SOA. The amount of education we deliver or require in data science and AI and machine learning and programming languages, that's going to have to increase significantly. We have to find new ways of offering education and testing students the skills in communication and judgment and adaptability. In other words, we have to put more EQ and AQ into our curriculum. I think of my fellow board member, Terry Long, who's kind of been beating this drum for like the longest time. As we talked about this, he's like, this is something I've been passionate about for years. We'll need to adapt our our continuing education and our basic education system and emphasize skill development and demonstration of skills at all stages in the education process. And finally, we're going to need to partner more widely and intensively on education. We'll need partnerships not only with testing organizations to provide technology for assessments, but also employers for custom training programs. You all may you may have seen an announcement that the SOA partnered with a major employer for a custom training program in predictive analytics. And finally, for professionals in related fields, we need to consider partnering with them so that we can harness their knowledge also. On the professional development front, to meet market needs by country, we can overcome the barriers of inconvenience and high costs in all markets. We can partner with local actuarial organizations and leaders to offer discounted or free professional development content to drive the engagement with SOA earlier on in the actuary's career. And to meet the actuary's evolving needs, we may offer a mentorship program for actuaries to feel supported in their careers, especially for those in the non-US markets and for younger actuaries. Probably many of you have been part of the mentorship program within your own organization. You know that those can be really effective in creating kind of lasting relationships. And to meet the online professional development needs, the SOA can build stronger relationships with partners and employers' internal curators of PD to ensure that employee PD needs are met. we're learning a lot about webcast this year. So, I think the trend toward webcast is going to stick around at least for a while. To increase webcast engagement, we need to conduct Q&A after webcast, offer additional credits for pre and post work and engagement, include breakout sessions for smaller groups to discuss the case together, and update course descriptions to be sure they all clearly articulate the topics and the detailed level of knowledge required and the appropriate level for the course. And to optimize online PD content, the SOA needs to stay up to date, to be relevant with the content and improve the format and the delivery and the speakers. I also want to say, for those of you who have helped with the SOA's PD this year in particular, in the year of coronavirus, it's been so critical to have your volunteer time dedicated to this. It's a key function of the SOA, and all of the major conferences, as you know, have gone virtual. And I'd say we have some indication of light at the end of the coronavirus tunnel, but we're still in the thick of it. And your time and effort in particular has been really, really helpful. Finally, I want to touch last on the implications of these trends on research. There are some really clear things that we can do on the research side and I'm the board of directors partnership for research. We can take predictive analytics. With that in mind, the SOA plans to collect more research data, including more granular experience study data sets and an enhanced analysis of experience data. We can use these to develop internal data sets collected by the SOA and use that use that for really to demonstrate our prowess and to demonstrate our prowess in the fields of data science and all of the work that they do there. On the international side, we seek to grow our interest and our interaction with our international members. This includes new research projects, volunteer opportunities, and strengthened connections with local and national actuarial organizations and regulators. So some key examples include like the retirement planning and risk studied in China and Asia Pac and Latin American markets, reporting on local insurance industry issues, and partnering with local organizations on experience study analyses. Finally, on education and PD, as it relates to research, we're determined to find ways that research projects may help to keep the SOA syllabus relevant to candidates, to members, and employees. The SOA research projects may include a specific list of learning outcomes or data sets that can then be used in developing exam exercises, PD modules, or webcasts based on current industry events and research, or for broader SOA symposia or certificates. The Research Executive Committee, of which a couple of you are a part, the Research Executive Committee recently approved the ability to increase funding for research committees and professional interest sections to more quickly identify and shape and implement and deliver these types of projects. Finally, we're considering more sponsored research, exploring sponsored research projects, including through externally funded grants of SOA research. And they may build on more SOA research on socially prominent and relevant issues. I do expect to see SOA research, focus more on socially prominent issues in the near future. So, in terms of our strategy and our next steps, the work we've done to date on long-term growth strategy it's been really deep. It's covered a wide scope of issues, and it's identified many areas for attention. The next step in our work is to convert the analysis into practical, actionable strategy for the future, having a balanced approach across varying time frames to ensure that we both kind of fix or adjust our current model while also exploring and piloting more transformational changes on the horizon as we anticipate longer-term trends. So, to address these issues, we're planning to pursue improvements to our current products and services, intended to extend their value. These changes will produce meaningful returns in value almost immediately. We're also planning to invest in new products and services that are extensions or offshoots of the services we currently have. And it has returns and values, we're thinking there, and it's kind of a next horizon, the next 2 or 3 years. And finally, investment in new products and services that are actually meaningfully different than anything we've done before or anything that we're doing currently. And those may have returns in the 3 to 5 year strategy. in 3 to 5 years. So finally, before I conclude, we're going to brand the stakeholder communication campaign to reflect the importance of this initiative and to effectively convey what our effort, this long-term growth strategy, what this effort represents for the future of the profession. Evolving education and development, empowering innovation and adaptability that'll elevate influence and our impact.